In our last video, we talked about those square-ish, foldable iPhone dummy models. Now, the newer, official-looking design units have leaked again, with one detail that changes everything. Touch ID is back on the iPhone Ultra, and Apple put the volume buttons where a lot of people are going to hate them. So, here's the situation. Fresh dummy units are floating around for two devices, the iPhone 18 Pro line and Apple's first foldable, which is being called either iPhone Ultra or iPhone Fold, depending on the leak, and the contrast is wild. The iPhone 18 Pro, almost a copy-paste of the 17 Pro. That's not the story today. The story is Apple's foldable, because these dummies suggest Apple solved a real foldable problem in a very Apple way, and then immediately created a different problem with the buttons. This design is going to split people fast. First, the boring part, quickly. The iPhone 18 Pro dummy units look almost identical to the previous generation. Same overall vibe, same layout. If you were hoping for a radical redesign, these dummies aren't bringing it. The big changes for the Pro line are probably going to be internal. We'll talk iOS 27 in a minute because that's actually important for upgrade timing. Now, the foldable. These official dummy units are the clearest hint yet that Apple is building a wide, short foldable that wants to live as an iPad mini first and a phone second. That's the core philosophy you need to understand, because every weird decision suddenly makes sense when you assume Apple is prioritizing the open, landscape, tablet-like state. And that's where we get the first headline feature, Touch ID. According to what we're seeing, the power button on the right side is expected to double as a Touch ID sensor. That's a massive shift because Apple has been all in on Face ID for years, but on a foldable, Touch ID isn't nostalgia, it's practical. Here's why. On foldables, you're constantly changing how you hold the device. Closed like a phone, open like a tablet, propped up on a desk, half opened, rotated. In those moments, Face ID can be awkward. The camera angle changes, your face isn't centered, you're too close, you're too far, and the device is sideways. You end up doing that little dance where you tilt the device until it finally catches you. A side-mounted Touch ID button fixes that. You grab the device, your finger lands where it lands, and you're in. That's one of the most underrated usability wins on modern foldables, and Apple adopting it signals something important. They care more about consistent unlocking across form factors than staying married to Face ID as the only premium method. But then we get to the button placement, and this is where Apple starts pushing people's buttons, literally. These dummy units show the volume buttons placed on the top edge of the iPhone Ultra/Fold rather than the right side, and that is not the norm. Most slab phones put the volume on the left and the power on the right. Many foldables keep it similar. Apple apparently decided the top is the move. At first glance, that sounds wrong. It sounds like a design that only makes sense to someone who doesn't actually use a phone one-handed. But if this foldable is wide and short, and if Apple wants you using it open in landscape like a mini tablet, top-mounted volume starts to make more sense. In landscape, the top becomes a more reachable side depending on orientation, and it keeps the right edge cleaner for the power button and Touch ID. It might also reduce accidental presses when you're gripping the device like a book. So yes, in tablet mode, this placement can feel intentional. The foldable becomes an iPad mini you can fold, and Apple is optimizing for that. Now, here's the problem. In phone mode, closed, one-handed, top-mounted volume becomes a reach. Not impossible, but awkward, especially for smaller hands. Your thumb isn't naturally going there, and now you're doing a pointer finger reach or a grip shift just to change volume. That's friction. That's the kind of tiny annoyance that becomes a daily complaint. So Apple may have solved one foldable pain point, unlocking reliability, only to introduce a new one: basic volume control ergonomics when the device is folded. And the funniest part is that the leak itself leaves just enough doubt to start arguments. There's that weird cutout on the right side that some people think looks like a 5G antenna window. It's flush. It doesn't scream button. But there's a chance Apple is hiding a rocker-style control there, or a pressure-sensitive strip, or something more subtle than a normal clicky button. If that ends up being some kind of volume control, then the top buttons might be something else entirely. Action button, camera control, a new programmable pair. Apple's been on a slow march toward buttons that do more, and a foldable is exactly where they try it. But based on the most straightforward read of these dummies, we're looking at top volume buttons, a right side power button, and Touch ID. So the big question is simple: did Apple fix foldables, or did they create a new daily headache? Because here's the reality. A foldable is always a compromise. You're buying one device that pretends to be two. And Apple, based on this design, is planting a flag. The open iPad state matters more than the closed iPhone state. That's going to upset people who want a foldable that behaves like a normal iPhone when shut, people who want the outside screen to be the real phone and the inside to be extra space. Apple seems to be doing the opposite. The inside is the main event. The outside is the convenient cover. And if you remember the dimensions we talked about last time, that shorter, wider closed shape already hinted at this. It's not trying to be a tall, skinny phone. It's trying to be a compact folded slab that opens into something closer to a small tablet. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but who cares about button placement if Apple nails the screen? Fair point, and that brings us to the crease. A new report adds more detail on how Apple is trying to reduce, or basically hide, the fold crease, and the key words are ultra-thin glass and optically clear adhesive. UTG, or ultra-thin glass, isn't new in the industry, but Apple's expected approach is different. Instead of ultra-thin glass just being a protective layer, the report suggests Apple may use variable thickness UTG, chemically strengthened, so the folding area is locally thinned at the bending axis. The part that needs to bend becomes more flexible, and the parts that don't bend stay thicker and more impact-resistant. That's smart, because one of the reasons creases form and worsen is stress concentration. If the bend region is engineered to flex more cleanly, you reduce the chance of that harsh deformation line. But the more interesting piece is optically clear adhesive. People hear adhesive and think it's just glue, but the report describes optically clear adhesive with viscoelastic properties, meaning it behaves differently depending on the type of force. During gradual bending, it stays soft to reduce fatigue stress, but under sudden force, like a drop or a push, its stiffness temporarily increases to provide localized support. That's a big deal. Foldables aren't just about making a screen fold. They're about making a stack of layers fold thousands of times without delaminating, bubbling, warping, or showing where your eyes focus most. If Apple actually gets the crease close to invisible, that's a selling point that will make people forgive other compromises, including weird buttons, because at that point, you're not buying Apple's first foldable. You're buying the first foldable that doesn't look like a foldable. Now, quick pivot to software, because hardware leaks are exciting, but software determines whether older iPhones suddenly feel obsolete. iOS 27 is rumored to support the iPhone 12 series and newer. That's huge for longevity. But there's a catch. Any new Apple Intelligence features in iOS 27 are expected to require an iPhone 15 Pro or newer. So even if your iPhone 12 gets iOS 27, you might not get the headline AI features. You'll get the stability, the polish, the general improvements, but the new brain features may stay locked behind newer hardware. And that fits the rumor that iOS 27 is being compared to Snow Leopard. Stability, bug fixes, tightening things up. Still, some features are expected, like a dedicated Siri app, a system-wide slider for adjusting liquid glass opacity, improved keyboard autocorrect, and more. Not flashy, but the kind of update that makes the whole platform feel better. Also, Instant Digital is the source here, and they've had real hits before, like calling the yellow iPhone 14 color and the Apple Watch Ultra 2 Titanium Milanese loop, but they're not perfect. So take it as a strong rumor, not a confirmed fact. Now connect the dots. Apple's Foldable is likely coming into a world where iOS is focusing on stability. That's not an accident. A foldable iPhone can't afford janky software. Multitasking, app resizing, rotation, continuity between screens, keyboard behavior, all of it needs to feel like Apple. And that loops back to the button decision. If Apple knows the top volume placement is awkward in the folded state, they could compensate with software. For example, a quick tap gesture on the side to bring up a volume slider, or a double press on the Touch ID power button to pull up volume controls, or an on-screen volume handle when the device is closed. Apple has options, and Apple loves solving hardware problems with software friction removal. But until we see it, the dummy units tell us the truth. Apple is making choices that prioritize the open device. The iPad experience comes first. And that's why this design will divide people. Some will love it because it's honest. It's a fold that admits it wants to be a mini tablet. Others will hate it because they wanted an iPhone first and a foldable second. Either way, Touch ID returning on an ultra-priced device is the most interesting shift Apple's made in years. It's not just a feature, it's Apple admitting that premium isn't one specific biometric method. Premium is whatever works best in your hand in the moment. So yes, Apple will push your buttons. Top-mounted volume might annoy you. Touch ID might win you over. And the crease tech might be the quiet reason this thing succeeds. If you want, I'll do a follow-up the moment we get clearer angles of that right side cutout, because that one detail could change the whole button story. Subscribe for the next leak breakdown, and comment right now. On a foldable iPhone, would you rather have Face ID, Touch ID, or both? Apple's message with this foldable seems clear. It's not a phone that happens to open up. It's a small tablet that happens to fold shut. If you're buying the iPhone Ultra, you're buying Apple's priorities, not yours. See you in the next one. Goodbye.